Hi, everyone. Thank you all, Murakoze Chane, for being here, and welcome, Murakaza Neza, to our Kwibuka 26 virtual commemoration program. My name is Sarah Brown, and I'm the Executive Director at Chhange, the Center for Holocaust, Human Rights, and Genocide Education in New Jersey. I'd like to thank a few people instrumental in making today's program possible. First, my warm and heartfelt thanks to Yannick Tona for joining us today to share your testimony and answer questions. It's been a while since you were local, and we are so happy to have you back in the area. Also, special thanks to our other survivors who are close to Chhange and who contributed beautiful messages that we have shared on our social media. Jacqueline Murikatete and Console Nishimwe. If you have not watched their video addresses, please do so. They are both powerful and timely. Thank you to our co-sponsors for this program, Kane University's Holocaust Resource Center, and a special thanks to Chhange staff, Ali Evans, Nicole Rizzuto, and Karen Finkelstein for helping to make today's program possible. And now it is my honor to introduce Yannick Tona. At the age of 4, Yannick Tona survived the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. The genocide claimed more than 1 million lives in 100 days. Fearing for their safety, Yannick and his mother fled by foot. Even though he was a small child and his mother was physically handicapped due to a childhood illness, they traveled by foot from the South Province of Rwanda to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a journey that would have normally, back then, taken 7 hours by car. Yannick has since become an accomplished motivational speaker, sharing his passion and belief in the possibility for change. He has spoken to thousands of youth and educators, tens of thousands of community members, and has been featured in a variety of local and international media outlets. Today, Yannick will share his testimony with our community and some of the lessons that he learned from witnessing and experiencing prejudice at its most extreme. And now I will hand things over to Yannick.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. I just want to hope everybody is well, especially we're going through difficult time with coronavirus. I'm praying for everybody and sending so much love to everybody around the world. I want to first say thank you to Dr. Sarah and the Center Chhange for the wonderful work they're doing, not only in New Jersey, but also around the world for building bridges between, the communities around the world, education about Holocaust and the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, and providing a platform to survivors like me to share our story, which is very, very important. And especially this time, 26 years after the genocide against Tutsi, we're having a new generation of young people who are not alive during the genocide, who these stories and these testimonies are very powerful lessons for them. So I want to say thank you to Dr. Sarah and the team and their partners for providing a platform like this for us to be able to share our story. So I will go for a few minutes to share my story, and I would like to use a PowerPoint because I want us to be able to see, give me a second, share some of the pictures. It's more easy. So when I'm sharing my story, you see what I mean, what I'm showing in terms of where I'm from. I grew up with my family, and I'm hoping at the end we have a few minutes for questions. So if you have questions or friends, family, and everybody around the world following us, please, I will be very happy to answer your questions. And I hope today, friends and all of us following us today will learn something from my story and why it's very important to remember and sharing the story. So my name is Yannick Tona. I'm from a very beautiful country for those who have never been to Rwanda yet, because I hope you'll be able to go very soon. It's a very, very beautiful country that is in East Africa, specifically at the heart of Africa. It is one of the most beautiful countries. I'm not saying because I'm from Rwanda, but really it's a true beautiful country. So I was born in the south of Rwanda, in a small town you see down in Butare. Just a little bit the town you see there. I will mention a lot that name Butare when I'm speaking, so it would be good if you could remember the Butare, B-U-T-A down there. But I grew up in the capital of Rwanda, in Kigali, which is in the middle there. Also, another name that I will mention that will be good to remember is the Democratic Republic of Congo, the country in the west of Rwanda, the neighbor country, close to the small town in Rwanda, Gisenyi, on the border crossing. I will be mentioning this a lot, so it will be good to remember these names. I'm say Butare, Kigali, the capital, and Congo on the west. So I was born in a very interesting family. This is a small church next to where my house used to be in the south in Butare. I was born in a small town just a few minutes outside of Butare called Gatagara. My mother was a teacher before the genocide against Tutsi, and my dad was in a business sector, did transportation and a few things on the side. This is my family for the genocide. It is the only thing we have left, the only picture actually we have left of my family us together. So I was born in 1990. When the genocide happened in 1994, I was just 4 years old. My sister on the picture, she was 3 years old. And there's a young brother who's not in the picture, who was born in 1993. So I was a very happy kid in the South. As I said, my both parents have good jobs. So we were very happy in the neighborhood. I was just young, as a kid, didn't know much what's happening until already everything changed on 6th April in 1994. The sun rays on that day as a normal day. But at the end of that day, something will happen that will change not only just my life, but everybody in my country, and our story will be changed forever. The plane that was carrying the former president of Rwanda was shot down when I was trying to land at the airport in Kigali. Few hours after they shot down the plane, which basically was yesterday on 6th April, they start putting roadblocks in the streets in Kigali, names of Tutsi, where they live, have already been made. So they start getting the names out and starting hunting Tutsis, specifically in Kigali, in their homes. So the killing started already specifically in the capital. I was in the south with my family, very happy. On 7th April, when the killing started in most of part of the country, my mother told me and my sister, we were very young, that we're going to my grandma's house for what she told us for holidays. But in truth, actually, she was lying us, because what happened a few days before, the killing starting in some part of the country, my family had feared that the killing is going to start where we are, and they decided it would be good if our family go together at my grandma's house to be together, so that if something happened, if the killing starts in our neighborhood, we'll be together as a family, and the family decided. So they thought at the beginning, they were only targeting men and wealthy men. So my dad was the first person in my family to go hide, trying to figure out where to hide with his friends, because they just thought they were only targeting men. So, but they realized things are different. They're killing everybody who's Tutsi. So we went to my grandma's house, which I thought it was for holidays. But in reality, it was, my family were traumatized, were the stories they were hearing, what they were hearing about the killing. So, but for me, we go to my grandma's house for holidays. I love going to my grandma because she was a very interesting character. As a young child, I grew up in a house. I lived in a house with electricity, water, and everything. And by my grandma's house was very different than ours. It was still a typical small house, and I loved going there because to me it was like a discovery of a new territory for me as a child. So I loved going to my grandma. So I went to my grandma, And we stayed there for a few weeks until around April 19, when one day we were sitting outside my grandma's house. I was me and my sister. We were just playing. My grandmother was cooking for lunch, and my mother and my uncle was just standing next to them. And in a spare second, we see like 100 people just running next to my grandma's house on the street. And my uncle stand quickly and ran and asked to these people why they're running. To me, as a kid, I've never seen that many people running. You know, it was interesting. I was like, wow, this is fascinating for me as a child. But my uncle started asking one of these people why they're running, and he said they start killing Tutsi in Nyanza. Nyanza is a small town it's a city not far from where my grandma's house was. When they start killing Tutsi, I know what killing as a kid, but because I've seen it in the movies. And say when he said they start killing Tutsi, I thought Tutsi was like a lion or an animal, that all these people are just running to kill those animals or what that animal. But when they said I start killing Tutsi, I saw something different in my mom's face. I see my mom's face changing. My grandma just panicked. My uncle just grabbed me and my sister, my young brother, and they took us inside the house. We all went in the living room, and they called a family meeting, and everybody shouting, screaming, everybody, people grabbing stuff all over the place. And I'm just a child. I don't understand what's happening. It just, I'm just sitting there and see chaos everything going on. That I will understand later when I grew up what exactly was happening, when my mother was sharing the stories with me. And then when in that chaos, everybody panicking, my grandmother stand and asked everybody to sit and listen. And she came up with an idea saying that if we go together as a family, if we go all together to seek where we can hide as a family, if they take us, they will kill us, and that will be the end of the family. And the best way to do this is separate ourselves in small groups and go different paths, different ways in small groups, so that we have more chance to survive. So if they take one group, maybe another group will survive. So we can increase our lack of surviving. So everybody took my grandma's advice. We divided in a group of 2 people. They chose me to go with my mother. My sister was 3 years old to go with one of my uncle. My younger brother was the last one of the family. He was 1 year old to go with my grandmother, and my grandfather to go with my uncle. So we're between 16 people of my family at that time, including my cousins and my 11 uncles. We divided ourselves in groups of 2 people, and we left my grandma's house. So why did they choose me to go with my mother, not my youngest brother, who's normally automatically the youngest goes with the mother? It's because my mother, she's physically handicapped, where it means she can't carry a child. She needs the cane to walk. And I was the oldest in her children who can walk. I was 4 years old. So they chose me to go with my mother because I could be able to walk on my own. So we left my grandma's house. And when we left, frankly, I thought we're just going to the market with my mother, but I didn't know this would be the last time that I saw many members of my family, that it will be the last time we have Christmas after my grandmother. It was just a few days, after Easter. I didn't know that it would be the last time we ever got in my grandma's house, that the next time I'll come back to that house, it won't exist anymore. And I didn't know that, just a few days from that, my life will be changed completely. That there's a journey that is just waiting me that will change my life, and I won't be the same anymore. We left my grandma's house. We started walking, trying to find where to hide. To me, in my thought as a kid, I was just thinking we're just going to the market with my mother. When we started walking, we used to have cars, but we can't drive those cars now because there's roadblocks every street. We drive, they will stop us on the road and kill us. The only way we could increase the more chance to survive is walking in the bushes. So that's what we did with my mother. We started going to the bushes and start walking and hiding. We walked from the south province of Rwanda, that small city, to Butare, close to Butare, where I show you what's called Gatagara, to all the way to the country I show you in the Democratic Republic of Congo for more than 3 weeks. If you drive there, let's say if you go to the capital and then go all the way to Gisenyi, it will be around 7 hours driving. But me and my mother, just 4 years old and a handicapped mother, we walked all the way to Congo for more than 3 weeks. Just a few days before that, I was a happy kid with everything. I have never walked in my life. I walked a few minutes in the neighborhood, but we had drivers who drove us everywhere. And in 1 second, everything changed. The next day, I found myself walking hours and hours. I always tell people that if it was just, the walk and then we survive, maybe we'll be fine. But on the top of those more than 3 weeks to spend, we couldn't go to the market to buy food. We couldn't go, get food anywhere on the restaurant because they're trying to kill us everywhere. So we're trying to hide. So we spent more than those 3 weeks surviving on drinking water with no food. I was just 4 years old. And I was a kid who have never missed any meal in my life before. I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And one day, everything changed. My mother could feed me, couldn't find food. On our journey, I would tell my mother, I'm hungry, I want to eat. And she would say, wait, the next stop will get food. Just wait a few hours, I'll get you food. But slow by slow, I started to realize that there wasn't going to be any food. On the top of the long journey, spending days and days with nothing to eat, just surviving from water, drinking from wells, or we're hiding. On the top of that, they were trying to kill us everywhere we go. There were so many roadblocks, they were stop us, they almost kill us. There were so many houses where we're hiding, they find us and they almost kill us. One of them, what I remember very well, this was the first time in the genocide that I understand something's happening, that I probably should listen more to my mother and stop asking too many questions, because I was asking questions all the time. I want to go home, I want to eat, One day we were hiding in the bushes, and what the militia used to do, militia and the military used to send dogs to go find people where they were hiding, and they sent the dogs, and the dogs found us where we were hiding in the bushes, and they brought us from the bushes to this house in the front yard where there were a lot of people. It was 400-500 people, just all of them Tutsi sitting on the floor, waiting to be killed, and who have been corrected in different houses and different places they were hiding. So they brought us in and put us also to sit with those people. And we're just sitting there waiting to be killed. We were sitting there for hours. And then my mother told me, we were sitting on the last line. My mother told me to run small by small and go hide in a few trees that was not far from where we're sitting on the ground. Because there was very small kids, so they won't see me. So I just said, go, they won't see you, little, just go hide behind a few meters from the trees where we're just sitting on the front yard of that house. So I ran and went there. And for a few minutes, my mother also, slow by slow, she sneezed herself and came found me behind the tree I was sitting. So we could go far from that tree because it was lit in front of the eyes of those guys. So we just stayed there. It was just a few meters from the rest of the group. We just stayed there for hours until basically the militia, more militia to come and help them kill these 400-500 people in the front of my eyes, So all these 400 people just getting killed in front of my eyes. And my mother could not protect me to see from this. So women getting raped, We didn't understand what was happening. And so, women getting screaming. I saw this street everywhere. So people chopping at human beings. I saw kids who were my age crying, saying they will never be Tutsi again, or their bodies on the street. I saw people I know as a kid who used to come to my home trying to kill us. I saw everywhere, houses being burned, people trying to kill us everywhere, in every corner where we were. One day, we were hiding in this house and they found us again and they were trying to kill us. And my mother was trying to give them money not to kill us and said, please don't kill us, I'll give you the money I have. And I remember asking this guy with the machetes in front of me and my mother, and my mother she's asking to be forgiven and that we'll never be Tutsi again. And I start screaming to her, say, please forgive us, we'll never be Tutsi again. I didn't know even Tutsi what it means. But yeah, as a child, it started to come to me. I realized what's happening, the killing and the blood and bodies are on the street everywhere. But thanks God, me and my mother were able to survive and be able to reach to Congo and cross the border and went to Congo around end of May. If you drive from Butare to Gisenyi, we cross Gisenyi, the small cities in the west, and we crossed and went to Congo. Most of my family were not likely to survive. My young brother didn't survive. He was with my grandmother. He was 1 year old. They came in a horrible way. They took him and beat him on the wall, and he separated in two parts. And they forced my grandma to drink the blood of my brother before they torture and rape her and kill her. When people killed my grandma, they were not strangers. They were neighbors living next door to my grandma for generations. And one day, everything changed. My grandfather was found in the house where he was hiding, and they put him in a toilet, which in Africa it's a kind of toilet's like a well. Put him in a well. He was 82 years old, and put him in a long toilet, and he could not get himself out, and they throw rocks on the top of him. So he died days and days after. My uncle, one of my uncle, was killed in a huge massacre that happened in the stadium just not far from the city where we used to live. My other uncle was thrown in the water. Two of my uncles, they were burned in the house with the other 11 people. My sister, who was 3 years old, managed to survive, where she was hid by this woman who took her and rescued her, and she survived by grace of God. I really don't know how I can understand how she survived after spending 2 months hiding in a well, and she was just 3 years old. When we left my grandma's house, we were 16 people in my family. Only 3 people in that house survived, which is me, my mother, my sister, and actually one of my uncles. So 4 of us only survived in the family of 16 people at that time. The genocide was just 100 days. In 100 days, I lost more than 82 members of my family, including a lot of cousins, including my 11 uncles and my grandparents. The picture you see now is a mass grave, what used to be a mass grave, now actually, where I have my grandparents are buried there, my young brothers, they're buried there, and 6 of my uncles are buried in this mass grave. So what happened after genocide, we found them different places where they've been killed, and we can bury them with the rest of other Tutsis who were killed in the genocide in this area who were buried here. There's around, I think more than 600 people who were buried in this mass grave from my hometown where I'm from. You know, this picture is what used to be our house. During the genocide, they burned the house and took everything we used to have. The picture shows you at the beginning of me, my sister, and my father is the only picture we have. One of the hardest thing for me is not having any memory of what I could show to my children, you know, or I have a brother who's born after genocide. When we're telling stories, you know, we couldn't show him how our grandparents look like, or what my younger used to look like, or our uncles, because everything was burned in the house, and having nothing left that we could show to the next generation. It's very hard to survive and an education for the next generation. You know, and this is my family, 2014. This is me, my sister, my mother, my father, and my young brother who was born after the genocide in 2000. You know, this is my story, but there's thousand stories of survivors who survived the genocide against Tutsi in 1994 in Rwanda. You know, the killing was everywhere. You know, there are killings in the church, in the street, teachers killing students, priests killing, other Christians in the church, parents sometimes killing their only children or husband because, they are Tutsi and the husband is Tutsi. It's very hard when a country like Rwanda is so peaceful and lovely today. You see all these stories and see the level of the killing that we had. In 100 days, we lost more than 1 million people. And I use this picture because I want to show you if we just use, just say 100 million, and 10,000 people per day. That's 400 people per hour, 7 people every minute. And the war did nothing. After genocide, as many people in Rwanda and as my family, we came together and found a way to build our country, to make sure that what happened to us will never happen again. Make sure that our children will grow up in a better country than what we grew up with. And I will tell you, for those who have never been to Rwanda, and for those who have been in Rwanda, you could testify this. It is amazing to see what we have achieved in the last 26 years after genocide against Tutsi in 1994. I'm very proud to be a Rwandan and to have a country that it is very safe, developed, clean, and that's where people live in peace, and that I could feel confident and go home, knowing that my kids will grow up in a better country than what my parents and I would grow up in. Yeah. So the last 26 years has been an amazing journey for Rwanda, and we have seen so many development. If you go to Rwanda now, you will not believe that just 26 years ago, people are killing each other on the street. It is amazing the progress we see. And this is an example of the picture of the capital today. You see, Rwanda is one of the fastest growing economy in Africa, the safest country in Africa. it's amazing to see what the leadership, the government, and the people of Rwanda has been able to achieve in the last 26 years. So let me just finish on this positive note, or just showing what Rwanda looks like today. It's a very different story that's also very inspiring for my generation and many people around the world. Thank you very much. I'll take questions now.
Yannick, thank you so much for sharing your testimony with us. This is Sarah Brown coming back in. I want to now open up the conversation for any questions anyone may have. If you have a question, this is on Facebook Live right now, please write your question in. And Yannick, I actually have some questions here from 7th graders at Forestdale Middle School, which I wanted to share with you. I have a handful of them, and that'll give everybody else some time to catch up and ask your questions as well. The first one was, how do you forgive after everything that happened to you and was done to you and your family?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think forgiveness is a personal, it's a personal choice, and for so many reasons. One thing I learned is if I want to be different than people who kill my country, if I want to be part of building the better society in the country that I want my kids to grow up in, there's some tough decisions that I have to take. And one of them is to learn how not just to live with the people who kill our family and our neighbors and friends, is also learn personally how to forgive those, because I believe in the power of making a difference by starting by myself. And the forgiveness for me is not for the person who committed the crime. It's more for me, for my own health, mental health, and for also help me learn to live what happened to me and my family, and learn how to use that as a story or a platform that other people could learn from us.
Thank you for that answer. We have one from our Facebook group. Yannick, what gives you fear in the world today, and what gives you hope in humanity?
That's a good question. What gives me fear is people not learning what happened in Rwanda, or what happened in the Holocaust. People always ask me, why do you go around the world, share your story? Is because I believe that when people hear my story, my country's story, the survivor's story, is they will learn from what happened to us and make sure that will never happen again. My fear is if no people are learning what discrimination can do, what level of discriminating people. In Rwanda, they start calling us cockroach, for years and years. Years later, they're killing the cockroaches, start killing us. The fear for me is not people learning from what happened in Rwanda and the Holocaust. What gives me hope is I've seen people rising, making difference around the world. There's so many stories of people during the genocide who did an amazing job of saving lives. If you visit the Kigali Genocide Memorial, you'll see a lot of stories of people helping Tutsis to hide. You will see stories like Romeo Dele, who was head of peacekeeping in Rwanda, who refused to leave even when the United Nations failed to give him tools to stop the genocide. You'll see stories of a Carl Walken, who's one of the only Americans in Rwanda, who helps a lot of kids and helps saving so many lives. And that gives me hope that we could face the same thing and people make different choices. There's those people who make that choice, and that choice make a difference in so many lives. We could talk about people who are heroes in a society today, who are people who are born like us. You could talk Nelson Mandela, Dr. King, all this, Gandhi in India. These people are born like us, but what made them different than the rest of their generation is they made a choice, and that choice changed history, lives. Dr. King made a choice to fight for civil rights, and today, as a Black man, I could walk in the street in America. A guy who didn't know, I didn't know, he didn't know me. Nelson Mandela did the same in South Africa. Today, you could walk in South Africa as Black men, open a business. In India, Gandhi made a difference, made a choice, and that choice gave independence or a billion of people today. So these heroes we have in a society are people like us. The difference between them and the rest of their generation, they made that choice, and that choice made a difference. So today we could be the next Dr. King, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, and it's just simple. It's not about having a PhD. It's not about having billions. It's about making a choice and using the tools you have today to make a difference in your community in different ways. It doesn't have to be changing countries. It could be your community, it could be your school, it could be your family. But slow by slow, you're making a difference.
Thank you for that beautiful answer. I have a handful of questions. I'm going to try to catch up with them. This might be a very personal question, but has your belief in God changed in any way?
That's a good question. I will put it this way. Let me put this in mind. I have seen people's belief change because of what happened. In my specific example, I'll give you my family. In my family, we have different members of family who used to be very religious. After genocide, they stopped believing in God. Either we have other stories of people in my family, and even the country who, after the genocide, they found refuge in God, having faith, having to believe in something. That the reason why I survived in more than a million people were killed is that there's a purpose. God put me here to do something. So you have both sides of people who have found who different outcome because of what happened to them.
What do you think about comparisons that are made between the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda and the Holocaust?
If you go to Yad Vashem in Israel or any Holocaust memorial in the States or around the world, and then you go to the Kigali Genocide Memorial and you look the history of the preparation, the propaganda, the media, the lists, the ID and sign. It is literally the same road that led to killing of more than 1 million Tutsis in Rwanda during the genocide that led to the Holocaust, killing Jews in Europe. So it's very sad that it's very similar to both tragedies, and this just shows, and there's a lesson to learn from this: the power of education, the power of media, the power of propaganda. It's a powerful tool that it could really be used in a positive way and make a difference in changing different issues we're facing today. The reason why the Kigali Genocide Memorial exists, the reason why the Holocaust Memorials around or Chhange Center, this organization, the reason why they exist is to really turn the tool of education to a positive change that could help our communities and our society learn from what happened to in the past, which could happen again, by the way, if we don't learn from this, if you don't provide a platform and the tools for generations that were born after these tragedies happened, they could be able to learn, make sure that it will never happen in the society and communities.
Thank you. I have another question here from our 7th graders. How is your family now?
Okay, my family is doing wonderful. They are in Rwanda. As I told you, my sister just turned 29 this month or last month. I have a brother who was born after genocide. Kado, he's born in 2000. He's 20 something. He's 20, I think. yes, just turned 20. And my mother, she's doing wonderful. And my father, they're doing wonderful. They live in Rwanda now, which is so beautiful. And now I grew up in the capital, Kigali. That's where we live now, my family.
Thank you. I have another one here. What advice would you give to Rwanda's youth that's growing up now?
My advice is we are a very lucky generation that we have so many tools in our hand, and my parents' generation fought to give us a better life than we have today. You know, President Kagame and the leadership that stopped the genocide, they gave us another chance to build a new story for Rwanda, and we have so many tools and opportunities to do this. And what I was saying again before, I was saying in terms of the choice, the same advice I would give. It is not about who you are, where you come from, what you have. It's about making a choice and look around what you have and use that to make a difference and start making a difference from that. It could be on SDGs, it could be helping clean the community, it could be helping handicaps, it could be helping children on the streets, it could be, taking your time and go volunteering somewhere. And the generation in my country, we have responsibility. It's more than a choice. We have a duty as a generation that was born after genocide to really write a new story for our country, that our children our grandchildren will grow up in the world we built that is better than what our parents and our grandparents grew up in.
Thank you. I'm going to paraphrase the next one. Do you see the world becoming more concerned with atrocities that are taking place now around the world? Or do you feel like they consider their own interests before they intervene to stop things from happening?
Yeah. So this is a very interesting question. It is, it all depends. You know, it depends what part of society you're looking. Are you looking at the civil society? Are you looking politician? Are you looking just the general public people? But I will tell you, we live in a global world today. What happened in London affects what happened in New Mexico or what happens in Peru. And I mean, frankly, this coronavirus is emphasizing, you know, how close we are than we used to be. So one of the positives that came out from this being connected is that we're able to share information easily. We're able to learn what's happening in Peru. A kid in Australia knows it, as somebody in China in this province knows what's happening in Rwanda. And this is helping raising awareness about issues that are in our communities that I would not get much attention in the past, that are getting attention today. So this is a very interesting thing that I'm saying, and you're seeing this specifically on campus, students campaigning for issues that are happening around the world. You know, I remember when Darfur was going on in Sudan, you know, how organizations like Stand in America, you know, students all over the world was, you know, campaigning, pushing their government and policymakers to act and do something in Darfur.
I'm going to ask a question that you and I actually heard at school, because it was just such an amazing question. You know which one I'm going to do, yeah?
Yeah.
I have a feeling you suspect it, yeah. It was just such a powerful question, and it really, it sat with me. So I'm going to ask you again, if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, at the age you are now, if you could go back in time, what would you tell your 4-year-old self?
Oh, that was a very good question. It's always hard to answer this question because I would tell myself you will go through hell, but at the end of the day, you will come up change, a different person. And I will tell myself stay on the positive side and trying to use what happened to you to make a difference in somebody's life in the community. Yeah.
I have another one. You spoke about this a little bit, but I'll ask the full question. How do you think genocide should be taught in schools? How can teachers or even survivors or even perpetrators participate and share this knowledge?
So I think the more, again, it's amazing today that we have so many tools and platforms thanks to technology, where we could be able to, bring these stories alive in classroom, and which I think is a very important thing. And I do think, the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, the Holocaust, should not just be something you go to a center to visit. It should be part of our everyday education. Look, the history learning in schools is amazing. It's very important. It's great, but this part of the history of the world it's a must. It is the human went at the bottom of the evil. It is very important that we make sure this is not just another event that happened in the history, but it is brought to school, to classroom, and survivors, are given a platform to bring these stories alive. We're seeing survivors, thanks God, we still have a lot of survivors of the genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda, but the Holocaust survivors, with the age coming, we're seeing a few of them still alive today. So that's why I think it's very important we use all the platform we have to keep this memory and these stories alive and incorporate this in our education system on a national level, by the way, not just like a school by school. This should be on a national level. It is not an option, it's a must.
How has Rwanda rebuilt itself since the genocide, and what measures has the country taken to prevent future hate or violence?
I could talk about this for 5 hours or a day, because this is an amazing, it's an amazing story. When you go back to Rwanda, it's very hard to explain to people who have not been to Rwanda. You have to go to Rwanda to see what in 26 years we've been able to achieve in Rwanda. And this comes from, again, people making sacrifices, choices to learn how to live with people who killed their family. This is also contributed good leadership, leaders who knows to make those tough decisions, but knows that it's for the good benefits for the public and the country. One of the best things we did, so many good things we do. One of the best things we did in Rwanda after genocide, the government removed the Hutu and Tutsi ethnic that were in our ID. They were introduced by the colonial, who brought them and turned them to ethnic, because they were never ethnic in our culture. They were socioeconomic classes. They removed these ethnic groups that were introduced by the colonial, who wanted, to divide the country. This policy of divide and conquer. And the first thing they say, you're all Rwandan. This is the first message. You're all Rwandan. You speak one language, Kinyarwanda. You have the same culture. What's important is not to divide you, but what to unite you. I mean, this message that has been preached for the last 26 years has been a powerful message that has seen our country coming from, one of the most poorest country in the world to the fast growing economy in the world. This is one of the things, that the unity and reconciliation process that bring us families together. This has never happened anywhere in the world. Even in case of Holocaust, Jewish, most of them left Germany, go to Israel, around the world. But today, we live next to each other in the same country, in the same neighborhood, sometimes in the same neighborhood that people used to live before. So the story of Rwanda is a remarkable story. It's an inspiring and amazing story that could really open eyes to so many people around the world and other conflicts that are going around the world to see, look, this is what Rwanda did. You know, they went at the bottom and this is how they came from the bottom and be who they are today. But yeah, it's a very interesting story. If you haven't been, you should definitely visit.
We have another question. This one's about the transmission of memories.
Yes.
What do you advise we should tell our children about the genocide that we experienced? I'm guessing this is from a survivor asking you, what's your advice on what should we tell our children?
So I would tell you, you know, some of my members of my family after the genocide was very hard. And I would tell you for so many survivors, and some survivors, it is not always easy to tell the story. But I understand the pain. I understand how painful it is. But I found it as a duty for me to share my family's story because I want our last one we lost. I want the memory to be always remembered. It is my way to light the candle of their life, to bring their story, to tell their story to the generation of today. This is one part. The second part is that I felt it's in my responsibility to educate the next generation to learn from mistakes and what happened to us. On the third part, it is a process for healing for me, you know, that sharing my family story. It helps me process what happened to us. It helps me literally get better, you know, mentally, and it is very hard. But how we do it, we tell the story, you know, as much as we can, because one day we will not be alive, and I'm hoping the story will go from generation to generation and generation to generation, and it will be not my grandparents' story, not Yannick's story, it will be their story.
I have another question here. Do you think Rwanda's progress in terms of reconciliation and reconstruction has created a stable enough environment for that next generation when it is time for them to take over and become the leaders of Rwanda?
I think so. Yeah, I do really think so. That yeah, I really think so, because if you see the pillars of a society today is built on of we are all Rwandans. Yeah, Rwanda. It's an amazing program that has been going on for years in Rwanda. The environment my young brother who's born after just is growing up is very different, and the pillars of that generation, the society of today is, you know, we are all Rwandans. That it's not now just a saying, it's actually a reality now. You know, people see themselves as Rwandans, not as what they used to be seen by the, you know, the colony, Hutu, Tutsi, or whatever the thing. And it's going just beyond Rwanda. We are Africans, you know, we are humans, you know, and these are the pillars that are the foundation of the society we're seeing today. So that are the next generation of leaders are growing up with. So, and it's a very different story. It's amazing to see that. Yeah, I really feel confident that the next leaders or generation will continue the light.
How do you regain a sense of normalcy? How do you, and actually, I'm going to build on that. I'm going to take my executive privilege here. Even right now, and this is an extraordinary time, I think, also in modern history, and it's an interesting question. How do you regain normalcy when what you thought was normal and constant changed so dramatically and in your story so violently?
You never get normalcy. It's very simple. You know, what happened to you is with you forever. You have a different life. You have a different story. You really don't get a sense of normalcy. And I think is you actually learn how to live with what happened to you, and see how can you you know, use it to help you, you know, take the next step in life, which is, it's not always the same. In some people are still struggling, are being held with their past. Other people are being able, in case for Rwanda, most people are able to use, what happened to them and their families and accept it and take the next step. But in terms of getting normalcy, you really don't get normalcy. I mean, I could give you an example. When I was going to school in Texas, what shocked me is every time all my friends would say, oh, I'm going to my grandparents for Thanksgiving, or I'm going to my grandparents for this. And the thought of like a grandparents exist, I would always ask, your grandparents are still alive? And then I realized later, it's like, why do I keep asking people if their grandparents are still alive? Of course, this is a different society. In Rwanda, most people don't have their grandparents, and that was the norm for me, But in America, most people still have their grandparents, so so that's the norm. So to me, I grew up in that, society thinking grandparents don't exist; they're all killed, and then you go to a different society, it's a different story. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. You really don't get normalcy. It's not like it exists; it's always with you.
So we have time for one last question, and actually I want to hand that over to you. Is there any last thing that, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your testimony with us and for sharing your thoughts and your hope and your inspiring messages. It was a privilege just to sit and listen and learn and benefit from you. Is there any parting message that you would like to share with our audience today as Kwibuka 26 begins? And we are commemorating the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Do you have any last message you'd like to share with us?
So, look, I have said this many times, and I will say it to survivors. I understand how painful it is to tell a story, but we have a responsibility and a duty to our children, our neighbors, our community, to share these stories, to bring these stories alive in our community, that the hope is the world will learn from this. To the rest of the world and the rest of the community, these stories we share, it's not just something that happened by accident. There's steps that leads to things like this. There's steps that leads to discrimination. There's steps that leads to, a genocide. And the hope is that the message is learn the lesson of, to what happened in Rwanda, and look around you in society. Do we have signs that looks like what happened in Rwanda? Let's just go beyond this. Learn what's happening in society and say, is there any way I could make a better choice to be a better my community? I can improve my community. I can make my community better in many ways. I would tell you, I've seen in Rwanda choices that have nothing to do with genocide surviving, simple, choices that are making the community better, like, cleaning what we call umuganda in Rwanda, which is a national service of cleaning every last Saturday of the month, like something like that. And now our country is the most cleanest country, not because we have many campuses cleaning the country, it's because that, individual choice and that policy and that choice that people made, and it's really having an impact on our country. So what I'm saying is, look, there's so much in our communities and society around the world that need to be changed or need to be improved. And the message I want to share, look into that. Be the Nelson Mandela, be our Dr. King, be our Gandhi, be our Lincoln, be that hero in the society that we need, that could make that difference, be Paul Kagame of world today. So that society hero we need, be that one and make that difference in the community. And that's the message I want to share. And to the survivors of the genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda and around the world, I'm sending prayer. It is a very difficult time, and I really hope that the world is learning from our story, and they will make sure things like this will never happen again, and genocide will never happen again.
Thank you, Yannick, and thank you all.
So
Murakoze Chhange for being here, for engaging, for asking such beautiful and insightful questions. Thank you, everyone, for attending our program. We're going to sign off now. So thank you again for joining the Center for Holocaust, Human Rights, and Genocide Education as we commemorate Kwibuka 26.
Thank you.
May all of you be well and stay healthy and take care.